I have itinerary changes. I have a month's worth of cruise cancellations and a popular Alaskan cruise port. Well, they want to limit the number of cruise ships that are allowed to visit. So let's get into some cruise news. Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to today's video. First up, we have an itinerary change for Royal Caribbean's Wonder of the Seas. Now, this is going to be for the January 21st, 2024 sailing. So it's still a year away, plenty of time for anybody that doesn't like this particular itinerary change. And while Royal Caribbean didn't give a specific reason for the itinerary change, it most likely is caused by a port conflict or some type of scheduling issue that requires these type of changes. That's usually the reason when you see them a year or more in advance. To provide you with the best experience, we swapped the order you'll visit: Phillipsburg, St. Martin, and Perfect Day at Coco Cay. We've also replaced our visit to St. Thomas with a visit to San Juan, Puerto Rico. So they've had two ports just swap the days that they're going to be visited on, and instead of St. Thomas, they're now going to be going to San Juan, Puerto Rico. And like I said, Royal Caribbean did not say, hey, this is exactly why we did this, just that it is an itinerary change. And like I said, most likely it's a scheduling conflict. Now, Carnival Cruise Lines, they have announced that they are canceling an entire month of sailings for the Carnival Glory, and that is so the Glory can go into dry dock. Now, that will be from March 24th of 2024 through April 28th of 2024. So again, a year in advance. For people that had already booked cruises on the Glory, gives you time to reschedule your cruise, replan your vacation. Now, this is going to happen right at the time when the Carnival Glory is scheduled to leave New Orleans, move over to Port Canaveral, and in between that move, she is now going to go to dry dock for a month for regular maintenance, hotel upgrades, updating, and everything that the ship needs. And finally, we have an Alaskan cruise port, a popular Alaskan cruise port that wants to begin limiting the number of cruise ships that can visit the port each and every day. So the city of Juneau in Alaska, which is the state's capital, they have approved plans to move forward with limiting the number of cruise ships that are allowed to visit the port per day, and they want to bring that limit up to only 5 ships per day. And this is to help with overcrowding, pollution, and other negative impacts that having an extremely large amount of cruise passengers creates on a daily basis that they visit. We got too many people in too small an area. Downtown hasn't gotten any bigger, the sidewalks aren't bigger, the roads aren't bigger. We're at the point where capacity really is the issue. And that's a statement made by a local resident there in Juneau, and simply they're saying too many cruise passengers all at one time. Now just figure, even at 5 cruise ships, at our current size of cruise ships, they usually have 2,000 plus passengers on board. You get 5 cruise ships all in port at one time, you're talking over 10,000 cruise passengers suddenly hitting a town that only has a population of 32,000. So that is quite a large influx of cruise passengers. Now, this is just something they've approved to start moving forward with. There, of course, is no law, ordinance, or measure that it's done yet. There's nothing actually in place putting a limit on the number of cruise ships. This is just something they want to move forward with. So nothing is expected to affect the 2023 Alaska cruising season. Where you may possibly see some changes will be in the 2024 Alaska cruise season if something like this actually, goes into effect. And how much it's going to affect cruise lines, what type of itinerary changes you could expect, well, that's really going to depend on what they end up determining a cruise ship is. Besides all of the normal cruise lines, the big cruise lines that we have that visit Alaska, your Carnival Cruise Lines, Royal Caribbean, Princess, Holland America, you have your Disney Cruise Lines, you have Norwegian Cruise Lines, all of your big ones already have cruise ships or multiple cruise ships that visit Alaska every season. You also have your regional, some of your luxury, and some of your smaller cruise ships that also visit Alaska during the Alaska season, like Uncruise, American Cruise Line, Silver Seas Cruise Line. So what is going to be their definition of a cruise ship can be what affects itineraries in the future if this even passes. There's already a day that's already on the schedule for June of 2024 that has 6 of the major cruise line ships in port all at one time. So if they determine that a cruise ship, is something much smaller than what already visits the port, from the big cruise lines, that could limit the number of cruise ships that can go into port per day. If they say some of the smaller cruise ships also count as cruise ships, and there's 2 or 3 of those scheduled to visit, that could limit, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and some of the other ones to possibly have to make itinerary changes to be under that number 5. But of course, that's all, again, if something like this actually moves forward. Now, we've seen things like this before. There is a limit on cruise ship size for Key West, Florida. There is a limit on the number of cruise passengers that can visit Bar Harbor up in Maine. Both of them, though, have legal challenges, and I'm sure anything that they pass in Alaska will also end up having some type of legal challenge. But it is something just to be aware of in the future, and you're starting to see this in more and more places, where as the cruise ships get larger, the cruise port becomes more popular, more and more cruise passengers visit the port, all at a single time, all on a single day. In some of these communities, they are feeling overwhelmed. Too many people hitting the town all at once. And this probably is not going to be the last place out there to say, hey, maybe we need to start putting a little bit of limit on some of the stuff we're doing. I mean, even down in Cozumel, Mexico, they have been talking about adding a 4th cruise pier for a couple of years, and that is still getting protested. And some of it has to do with the number of people that hit town all at once. It also has to do with environmental issues and the diversification of their tourism. But it just is another example of a place that's very popular like Cozumel, where they love the cruise ships to come in. There is still opposition to a 4th cruise pier. So cruise lines may have to look for alternatives in Alaska in the coming years in order to spread that out a little bit more if Juneau ends up limiting the number of cruise ships that can go there. But like I said, it's got to pass first. It's got to be put in place. You got to go through the legal challenges, all of the stuff involved. So who knows if and when this will actually affect cruises, but it is something to be aware of, something that is going on. So if you're sitting there looking at your 2024-2025 cruise season, booking your Alaska cruise, really wanting to go to Juneau, Alaska, just keep in mind that's something you need to watch in the background to see if it's ever going to have any effect on your future cruising. And if it does, and if we hear any more information, of course, we'll immediately let you know about it. All right, and that is your cruise news for today. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you have, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there is having a really great day, and like always, we will see you out on the high seas.